Hi, folks. Steven here. So, yeah, this is going to be a recap of this weekend's Anime Milwaukee and the time I spent there. Had a pretty good time. I pretty much always do, so nothing too special about that. But there were some changes this year and some certain events that I went to that I think are definitely worth talking about. So, as usual, I've got a little slideshow. So, we're going to be talking about that. Unfortunately, I have not had a chance to go into Pokemon Home to listen to whatever music might be there. I haven't had a ton of developments on Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution in a week and a half. So this is mostly going to be about Anime Milwaukee, which, as usual, of course, is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, downtown. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the thing there. So this should take at least half an hour, I would assume. Okay, PowerPoint. Slideshow, okay. All right, let's just go straight on to the first slide. Yes, so as usual, Anime Milwaukee was over Valentine's Day weekend. It is pretty much every year. I think they had it in March, probably due to a scheduling conflict or something. It's held primarily at the Wisconsin Center and usually one of the neighboring hotels. That changed up a little bit this year. We'll be talking about that. But as we do for these things, let's talk about the weather. I guess it's okay that I live somewhere that has different weather, different times of year. Makes it a little more interesting. So yeah, I looked at the weather for Friday and yesterday in Milwaukee, courtesy of the National Weather Service. And by the way, if you have any questions about any of this, go ahead and type those into the chat. I am able to see those, and I'll try to work those into the presentation if you have any questions there. So Friday, I drove up, and yeah, it was cold. High was 14 degrees Fahrenheit, and normal is right around the freezing mark. Low was -3. Normal is 19 degrees. So our high was below our normal low for this time of year. Nothing unheard of there. As I said to several folks there, it wasn't ice bowl cold. So it could certainly have been worse. About 10, almost 11 miles per hour wind speed on average. So definitely makes that feel a little bit chillier. Yesterday was definitely warmer. We hit a high in Milwaukee of 33 degrees, very close to the normal. Low was 6, so that was below normal, but that's because kind of with the previous day we were starting from a pretty low temperature. Winds were a bit higher, it's about 14.5 miles per hour there. I don't have figures for today, but based on my experience, the temperatures were about the same, maybe a little bit warmer, and the wind was not as prevalent as it was on Saturday. So I guess you could definitely say that Saturday or Sunday today was the nicest day of the weekend for this whole thing. All right. So I mentioned some changes in hotel. So most of the events are run at the Wisconsin Center, which, by the way, if you're keeping track, used to be called the Delta Center. Before that was called the Frontier Center. And before that was called the Midwest Airline Center, or Midwest Express Center. I forget which one exactly it was. And then, because the rights kept changing hands and eventually they expired, no one bought them. I'm not sure if they really, how much of an effort they made, but now it's called the Wisconsin Center. And it's right in downtown Milwaukee. But the hotel, usually they would stage these things at the Hyatt, which was a hotel, I guess, built probably either in the 60s or 70s. Instead, their staging stuff was over in the Milwaukee Hilton. Now, this was not originally a Hilton. It was originally, it was built in the late 1920s from what I could find online. And you notice it has a little antenna on the top there that used to be, at least used to be used for television stuff. I'm not sure if it's used for too much now. Probably it might not be high enough for probably not high enough for television. I do know that Milwaukee's TV transmitters are just north of the city in a place called Whitefish Bay. So I'm not sure what that gets used for anymore, but it's been there for a while. Hilton picked it up as a property in the mid 1990s, from what I understand, and put their name on it. But yeah, this building is almost 100 years old. And that actually, I think, makes for some very interesting stuff in there. So before we get into the convention itself, I did want to show you on the left, you're going to see a picture of the lobby of the hotel. It's got some very nice chandelier work. And then on the right is one of several pianos I just saw in the hallways there. I guess give it a little bit more class than it would otherwise. And then I got a few more pictures here. Here's another chandelier. Very nice pictures there. I will try and put the slides for this in the description afterward. I'll try to remember to do that. And then on the right, you can see some ceiling art, which is also, I would say, pretty nice there. Some really cool design. It has aged well, I suppose, as opposed to some other hotels. It's very different from, say, if you go into a modernly, recently built Hilton. And so that was kind of neat. And some of the stuff was in there. The press office was in that hotel. The board/card gaming area was in that hotel. The maid cafe was in that hotel, and a few other things, con ops and stuff. The rest of the stuff, of course, is in the Wisconsin Center. So let's talk about some of the panels I went to. So let's see. First up, the first panel I got a chance to go to, I went to a few press sessions right after I got there. And then I went to Video Game Music Jeopardy. So calling it Jeopardy, it sort of was that. They didn't hold people to answer in the form of a question. And rather than having individual contestants, they put us into 3 groups. And you can see we have categories there. There was a round 1, a round 2, and a final Jeopardy. And as much as I would love to say that me being, you may know that in my spare time, I run a pre-recorded radio show that plays video game music on WWMVLP, a radio station here. Oh, by the way, I should disclosure here. I was given a press pass for this event, which means I didn't have to actually pay the normal admission fees. I just want to point that out. I'm not really sure if that counts as paid promotion, but take that as you will. But they have all these categories, which were kind of loose. Like the second one you see there, the I'm holding this potion, I might need it later, is all RPG. Test Your Might is all fighting games. Curse, I think we're all like curse-related games or track names or something. You're going to have a bad time. Some of that was definitely Undertale-related. Everybody's backlog was kind of a miscellaneous category, kind of like Warp Zone, to be honest. I'd love to tell you that I totally aced this and knew every one of them. But honestly, some of these were really obscure, especially in the higher point categories or point values, like the 800 and the thousands that they did, where some of them were really brutal, to be honest. Really tough to guess. And I even missed some that I had used on my show. Like I knew which game some of them were from. I couldn't always remember the title and stuff like that, which is really frustrating. And like I said, if I guess I really want to admit to something here. They played the Battle Tower theme from Pokemon Sword and Shield, and I'd actually never gone to that part of the game. So I missed that. Apologies to Toby Fox on that one. But it was pretty casual. I mean, there were no real prizes. You did get the wager Final Jeopardy. I feel kind of bad. There was a joke Final Jeopardy before the main one, and actually one of the people in our group actually knew the actual answer to it. And I wrote down something else. And had we gotten that right, would have put the host in a bit of a difficult spot. So that was a fun panel, just kind of listening to the music and stuff like that. So I do hope the hosts will have things a little more. They had a decently well organized, but there's some definite things to improve if they do this one again. Okay, so what did I do after that? Well, I went to a Borderlands 3 panel. Now, I've never played any of the Borderlands games, and that made me make you wonder, well, gee, Steve, what did you go to that for then? Well, take a close look at the panel here. These are all, voice actors from the Borderlands series. Specifically, I guess they all worked on Borderlands 3, which I guess is the newest main series game. You probably can't read the titles on there, but take a look at them. The one on the left sure might be relevant to this channel, huh? Well, if you didn't know who that was, that is Martha Harms. So in the Sun and Moon series, she's been the voice of Officer Jenny. And unfortunately, I found out when I got there, I was looking through, they give you a schedule of press sessions, and her name wasn't on there. And in fact, there were a couple people who contractually could not do press sessions. Now, the most I could really get out of her in a press session about Pokemon would be talking about the Sun and Moon side. And then I don't know if she's confirmed on Twitter or anything. if she's doing the voice of Officer Jenny in the Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution remake movie that's coming out. That's probably the most you could say. I would probably just have to ask her, well, what do you remember from the original version, seeing it when you were younger? That'd probably be about the most I could do there. So, I would have liked to have had a press session, but I'm guessing I don't know exactly which contractual part, which of her jobs prevents her from doing that. But I was told that she was not able to do a press session for various reasons. She did have an autograph booth in the vendor hall and stuff like that. So that all still happened, but not an actual press panel where I could ask questions. I did ask a question here, but I didn't want to derail the conversation and stuff like that. And I still kind of enjoyed this panel, even though I've never really played the games and I'm only vaguely aware of the series. Some things we should note here, though, is that Martha is a Wisconsin native. She's from the Milwaukee area. I forget if she's from the city proper or one of the suburbs. And what's kind of neat is that her dad was in the audience. I didn't get a good picture of him. I was actually directly behind him, but that was kind of fun. And then she sort of got to make jokes at some of the other folks obviously have been living in places like LA or Vegas or stuff like that, or Texas and stuff. And coming up to Wisconsin, especially on Friday when it was pretty cold, so she kind of got to poke fun at them a little bit. She's mentioned that there was like one time in the mid 90s where they canceled school, although they've done that in the last 2 years. We've had cold days for like the local Madison schools sometimes because you can plow snow, you can't make it warmer. But Martha did take this opportunity to kind of make fun of some of the other folks there about, oh yeah, this is cold. I'm used to this, so it really is coming back home. So that was kind of some neat things to learn, even though I didn't get a chance to really talk to her about anything Pokemon related, which is kind of a shame. But all right, so what else did I do this is all on Friday, by the way. I went to the video game area where they had a lot of different stuff. They had all these consoles set up. I believe it was all run by the folks from KitsuneCon, which is another Wisconsin convention. I want to try and get to that one around sometime as well. But then they had a sort of a viewing area for whatever competition was going on. They had the competition area for the players. And then behind all that, they had a bunch of arcade and even a couple pinball games. Arcade games range from old classics to they had Donkey Kong and stuff like that to other stuff. Now, on the left is a relatively rare cabinet called Ninja Baseball Batman. And despite the way it looks, it has nothing to do with two media franchises you may be thinking of at the moment. Yes, there are 4 colors on there. And but it's apparently about some, I forget if they're robots or what, but they carry baseball bats, and it is a beat 'em up, kind of like Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. And then over on the right hand side, they had a couple pinball tables. You could see Demolition Man and Hook, 2 movies from the 90s that got pinball tables. It seems like it was more common into the 90s to get a pinball table based on a movie rather than, because there's like an Addams Family pinball table that's relatively well known and a couple others. Didn't get a chance to really try out any of this stuff. I really wish I had more time, but carrying a lot of stuff in your back wears you out. But that was a brief tour of the video game area. We'll be back there in a little bit. And here you can see the seating area in front of the TV and or the screens and stuff where they would show some of the matches from when they'd run tournaments. Let's see here. Did just press. There we go. Yeah, there's a lot of pictures here, so sometimes it takes a little while to load stuff. So, yeah, there was on Friday a Pokemon cosplay meetup, which was a lot of fun. I picked out a couple here. First off, on the left, you'll notice, yes, this is one of, I think, 2 different ball guy cosplays I saw over the weekend. Before you worry too much about whether he can breathe, it does look like there are holes punched into the mouthpiece there. I'm not sure how well they work, but I certainly hope they work well enough. I wouldn't want to, run a marathon or a race in one of those, but for normal breathing, he's probably okay. In the middle, we have, there were a number of Mimikyu cosplays, which is really neat. This one almost feels kind of like a cross between Mimikyu and the Scarecrow from the Batman series, especially like the Dark Knight trilogy. I forget the name of the human character and then the actor who plays him. And then on the right, you have very nice Pachirisu cosplay. That person, individual, I was able to interview her, and I'm hoping to get that interview up by the end of next weekend, along with a few other things that I'll mention along the way here. So some very nice cosplay there, and look forward to telling you more about that in the future. All right, so next up. So yeah, going into Saturday, there was a Smash Ultimate tournament, and although Smash Bros. Is not technically a Pokemon game, I consider it fair game for this channel. And of course, they have there are new characters since last year's competition. So you can see some folks waiting for the tournament participants to select their characters on here. I did get to see a lot of the Pokemon Stadium stage because that was one of the allowed stages in this matchup, which was, I guess, kind of nice there. But obviously, it attracted a fair number of folks. The tournament, though, went on for like close to 5 hours, and it was single elimination. I think they had like 64 competitors, so definitely took a while there, but they did get it done. All right, so now I should preface this. This is the second place finisher. The winner is actually, if you want to hear from him, he's a Ganondorf player that also won the tournament last year, and I interviewed him then. I'll try and get back and put a card in this one. But this is the second place player, and he goes by the name Conkers with a Z. And somewhat noticing a theme here because one of the characters he plays as a lot is Banjo and Kazooie. This being one of the newer DLC characters, I definitely wanted to focus on that, especially since, I try to give some variety. So I didn't really want to, nothing against the guy who won. I kind of didn't want to redundantly interview him again. Yeah, he used Banjo and Kazooie quite impressively in some of the matches I was able to see of his. And I also noticed there was a Jigglypuff player who got reasonably far and did some good stuff there. But that'll be a written interview with Conkers. Ideally, sometime by the end of next weekend, I'll be getting that up on the PokePress blog. So that all seems to check out. All right. So I mentioned there was a dealer's hall, and this time around, and I remember a couple years ago, I said that I think it was 2018 or 2017, one of those years. I said that, hey, I noticed there weren't anyone selling video games, which I know this is an anime convention, but there's some pretty good crossover between those two audiences. So last year they definitely had some games, and I picked up some stuff then. And this time around, I did pick up one thing. I picked up a Japanese copy. You can probably tell which game that is. That is a Super Famicom, or a Japanese Super Nintendo game. It is, of course, the Japanese version of Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. It has the Triforce of the Gods, or whatever it is the title there. And before purchasing it, I wanted to make sure it is the 1.0 version. Not because I'm going into hardcore speed running or anything like that, because that is the version, because it has like the most exploitable glitches and stuff like that. It's also used in the Link to the Past randomizers. Yeah, I know there are other ways to get a quote-unquote copy of the game, but very nicely, the folks who were running that there, I said I needed to be able to see what was imprinted on the back label to be able to tell. And as far as I can tell, it's just 2 digits there. If it had an A or a B, that would mean it was the 1.1 or the 1.2 version. And so that was very nice of them to help me check that out and make sure I was getting the version I wanted. So looking forward to that in the future. And by the way, Link to the Past is actually one of my favorite games of all time. So very glad I was able to pick this one up here. I did kind of wish they had the Japanese Super Metroid, because there's actually also a combo randomizer. And of course, there are a lot of randomizers are a big thing right now. There's ones for the Zelda games, for the Metroid games, for the Pokemon games, where they'll randomize all sorts of weird stuff into a different experience every time. So that's kind of a big thing, to just shuffle like items within the game and see if you can do that. They usually have some logic to try and make it sure that you're not stuck somewhere or something like that. But yeah, that was a fun pickup. All right. So here's another panel I went to on Saturday. This was a live video game music show that a band called Arcade Mode put together. Now, I did look on like iTunes. There's a band called Arcade Mode there, but I'm pretty sure they're actually from Europe. They're not these folks. But they're kind of somewhere between rock and jazz. I think the term is fusion, but I'm not 100% sure on that one right now. And no disrespect to them, I had to go into the hallway because their music, I mean, it was pretty loud, amplified sound, and I tried to protect my hearing and stuff like that. But from what I could hear, they were pretty good there. I talked to them afterwards, and it turns out they have recorded a few things, so might get something for my radio show, which is kind of nice. But seem pretty talented, and I hope we see more from them in the future. So that was kind of a neat little one-off there that they did for an hour-long concert with their band there. You can see they have a couple guitarists, they have a vocalist, and they have a drummer. So I might do an interview with them in the future as well for the channel. So we'll see how that one works out. All right. So what did I do today? So today I was only really there for mostly the morning, left kind of in the early afternoonish to get back home here in Madison. But in the trading card / board gaming area back at the Hilton, they had a Pokemon League like all 3 days, which was kind of sparsely attended, kind of unfortunately. I think the Friday one started at 4, and a lot of folks by that time of day just kind of wanted to get dinner and things like that. And then the Saturday one didn't get too many people. They did get some new folks who were kind of new to the game there. All this was run by Gnome Games, which I think is based in Green Bay. I think they might also have a place in Appleton, which is sort of in the northeast. Well, it's sort of east central if you look at the state as a whole. But if you look at Wisconsin, it's kind of like this, where if this is the Wisconsin-Illinois state line, then Madison is here. Milwaukee is here. Green Bay is up here. Appleton is kind of down there. But what's going on with this is this morning they did a Sword and Shield sealed event. Now, again, this was kind of sparsely attended. I don't know if Sword and Shield is just not a great build and battle set. I've had some okay times with it. But there were two of us, me and one other person. I'm very glad I showed up, I suppose. His name was Colton. He was sort of a lapsed player. He'd been playing about a decade or so ago. And he came in here, and I sort of explained some of the rule changes with Sword and Shield and stuff like that. But this is what I put together. It's not completely similar to what I did in the actual pre-release last month. But this time I got Grass and Metal. And so I tossed in, I actually got like another Bisharp in my packs, but I ended up having to go with 3 and 3. And then I played a Turtonator and a Choodle to sort of, the Turtonator was to, hit other people's fire weak Pokemon, and then Choodle was sort of to counter some of their fire. They both have colorless attacks, using to do an okay amount of damage. I got really lucky on the trainers, to be honest. I could have played a second Professor's Research. I had 3 Quick Ball. Had more trainers, had to really pare that down. So I got pretty lucky, and we played a couple games just because there were only 2 of us. We even swapped for like the 3rd game there, just out of kind of fun. And I pointed out some ways he could have maybe built his sealed deck a little bit better and stuff like that. And I also let him know, by the way, that at the Wisconsin Center in the end of May is when regionals is. It's usually in Madison for the Midwest Pokemon regionals, but I'm told they had a scheduling conflict of some sort, and they had to move it to Milwaukee, at least for this year. So, but I did let some folks know about that over the weekend. Okay, and then I think I got 1 or 2 more slides after this. Yes, I mentioned it's Valentine's Day weekend. And, if you have that special someone, why not take them to an anime con? In case you're wondering what this is an ice sculpture that was in downtown Milwaukee, and very confident it did not melt at all on Friday. But it's got some nice, I assume, LED lights so that there's not too much heat there. But it's got a little heart for the back of the thing there. But whoever put work into this, looks like they did a pretty good job, and I'm kind of pretty impressed by that, to be honest. But for actual stuff, so I'm wearing my Pokemon Go shirt. I think next weekend is Community Day. I could be wrong about that. But this weekend was Valentine's Day weekend. So, yep, they did a Valentine's Day celebration, and there were lots of pink Pokemon out there. You can see the picture there. I mean, obviously, there was Happiny, which I didn't run into any of, but Slowpoke, definitely. I don't think I saw any Lickitung. I only did a little bit of it, but I did manage to get a couple decent Pokemon in there. You got extra candy from them because, of course, what is Valentine's Day without candy? So very, very thematic there. Of course, I got a bunch of Love Disc. Never really a good competitive Pokemon. Let's see. not gosh, what is it? The how bad was Love This Actually from oh gosh, I'm trying to remember what the guy's name is for his channel, and because I just watched another one of his on how good Superior is today. It's one of the Pokemon channels that I watch decently regularly when they have new content. But yeah, that was kind of the stuff you saw there. So, yep, that's the end of the slideshow. So let's just go over a few things while we still have some time here. So updates. Let's see. As far as the next episode of the podcast, that should include some stuff from Anime Milwaukee. It won't include the cosplay interview because there was nothing, you have to have visuals for that to work. So it's not going to work in an audio podcast. So that'll be a video on the channel for sure. And then after that, what else have we got? We've got, so there was another voice actor. So Martha didn't have a session, but Erica Lindbeck did. Now, you may remember that a year or two ago, she was at Anime Milwaukee, and we did an interview there. And ordinarily, I wouldn't have gone for some more stuff, but I looked through the voice acting credits for Pokemon Masters and noticed that Erica's name was in there. And she did the voice of Maylene and Rachel, who are Maylene is obviously a gym leader from the 4th generation who appears in the game, and then Rachel, I think, is an original character they created for this game. I forget if she's part of like the organizers' entourage or something like that, but she does both of those. And we talked a little bit about that and gave sort of a little overview. If you want to know her full story and how she did Lorelei in Pokemon, I forget if it's Generations or whichever one it is, she did that, and then we talk a little bit about that, but I'll be putting up a version of that hopefully in the next week or two, and that'll probably wind up in the podcast feed. Also, the Smash Brothers written interview should be coming out eventually, and then the cosplay video will be coming out. So those are kind of the things from here. Let's see, if indeed the Pokemon Go Community Day event is next weekend, then we'll have another live stream around then. And sometime next month, we'll have a discussion. We have planned a discussion, I should say, with Anne from VV Podcast about the music of Mewtwo Strikes Back Evolution. So a lot of stuff going on. And like I said, hopefully this week I'll get some time to try out Pokemon Home. And if there's any substantial music there, I'll give some impressions whenever we do our next live stream. But other than that, thank you for watching.